Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about peace. For those of you who are not aware, I am the first priest emeritus of the Corellian tradition, and 10 years ago I started the Corellian Peace Campaign. And this was a campaign to work for greater peace in the world through individual and group prayers. Prayers to increase the powers of peace and love versus the powers of hate and fear. Now, of course, we had peace workers in the Corellian tradition far before this, but we hoped to more greatly emphasize their work and expand it. And in the 10 years that have passed, we've had a great many prayers for peace, individually, communally, tradition wide. And as we look at the world around us, we might ask, did this do any good? And my answer is that I believe that it did. I do see that the powers of hate and fear have greatly crescendoed during these same years, but I can only wonder if they would not have done more if we had not been spiritually fighting against them. So I do think that our spiritual work for peace does make a difference. But of course, spiritual work does nothing without also considering the physical aspects of the situation. If we want to see greater peace in the world, yes, we must pray for it. Yes, we must work energetically for it. But we also need to work for it in our daily lives and in our communities and in our politics. We need to make it part of how we address all of the different situations that we face in life if we really want to see a greater peace in our world. We started the Corellian Peace Campaign because I and many of my close advisors, notably Ed the Pagan, felt that there were other people in the world doing exactly the opposite thing, that they were deliberately spreading the energies of hate and fear, something I firmly believe and feel has been very adequately demonstrated in the 10 years that have passed. I think those people are working far harder than ever before to make people as frightened and hateful as they can because it builds power for them. How do we react to that? Well, we don't do it by sinking to the same level. We do it by building our inner peace and making pragmatic, conscious decisions of what we do to continue to build a better world. And I see in the chat room Hannah, 1984, hello Hannah, who says, many years ago I watched your videos, and that made me start my pagan path. You explained everything so clearly and with humor. I admire you so much. Thank you, Hannah. I greatly appreciate that. And in talking about how we respond to the forces of hate and fear, I think this is an especially appropriate comment. I have tried to respond to the forces of hate and fear in the world by spreading the best information that I could, by trying to build a better world one step and one person at a time, by meeting people where I found them, and hopefully helping them to step up to a better place, something that has sometimes been successful and sometimes not. And that's going to be true of anything that you do. And when it's successful, you celebrate. And when it's not successful, you try to figure out how to do better the next time. The biggest complaint that I have had over the years about the Corellian Peace Campaign, which I assume is true for all efforts toward peace, is the idea that we cannot have perfect peace in this world, so why bother? And my answer to that has always been the same. Maybe we cannot have perfect peace. I don't think we can have perfect anything in this world by the normal standards that people mean that term. But that doesn't mean we can't have greater peace. It doesn't mean we can't have better peace. And that's what we work for. We work to make a better world one step at a time. We don't expect to jump the chasm in one leap necessarily. It is a journey of many steps. Um, no, everyone in the world is not suddenly going to get along because we say the right prayer. Of course, but we can help move it in that direction. And we can do that through prayer and energy work, accompanied by actual physical work. Um, I think the most important thing when focusing on peace is not to allow yourself to give in to hate and fear in your own life. It's very easy to do. Even this morning, I read a story online, which of course I should know better than, on this particular subject, which made me very angry. It was about a very inhumane act. And my response was one of fear and hatred. Perfectly normal response, but I caught myself and I realized that, that is not really the right reaction to that. Rather, we must look at how do we influence people to stop them from behaving in such a manner. And no, it's not in my personal hands today to do any one thing that will do that. But there are lots of little things I might do that will help us towards that, including expressing the way that I feel about that inhumane act. And of course, continuing to pray on the subject. I'm following a talk which was titled Love is Peace. And in point of fact, I agree with that statement. It's been said that there are only two real emotions in the universe, love and fear. But I think that is almost better phrased that the two poles of the universe are peace and fear. Peace in the sense of being at peace in yourself, being at peace in your existence, or being in a state of fear. All other states basically come down to these two ends of that spectrum. How do we build greater peace in our world? In addition to those things I've already said, well, one of them is by building greater peace in ourselves. When we can understand that the one thing we always have control over is our reaction to what is happening around us, then we have made a great step forward. I cannot stop the inhumane act that I just referred to simply by being opposed to it, but I can control my reaction to it, and I can try to make a reaction based in love and peace. That does not mean that there should not be a reaction. It does not mean it should not be a strong reaction, but it should be based in love. It should be based in peace, and it should also be based in pragmatism. I often see people putting forward potential solutions to problems which are completely impossible to ever implement. We need to keep our eyes on what is possible. We need to keep our eyes on incremental growth. We need to keep our eyes on the long game. We can build a better world. It won't be overnight. We cannot give up simply because it's not going to be overnight. There's a very wise saying that the wise person is the one who plants the trees whose fruit they will not live to see. But this is absolutely true. You may not see the better world that you're working to build, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't work to build it. If it comes to pass when you have entered into spirit, when you have left this world, that's still good. And it also builds a better world for you to return to when your time to reincarnate comes. Because we must remember that we don't really ever truly leave this world. We come back, and the world we leave behind is the world that we ourselves inherit. And we have many reasons to want to build a better world. not only our personal convenience living here now, but what will be here in the future, what will be here for our descendants, what will be here for us when we return. And this, I think, is all inherently germane to the question of peace. And what is peace? And this is probably the central concept that nobody really thinks deeply about, nearly as often as they should. Because so often people think that peace is the absence of conflict, and that is not true. If that is your definition of peace, then some of the most peaceful societies in the world are also the most oppressed, the most fearful, the places where people avoid conflict simply out of terror. That is not peace. Yes, it may be the absence of conflict, but it is not peace. Peace requires justice. Peace requires a society in which people can live their lives without fear based on who they are. I'm not saying that people's actions should not have consequences, but who they are should not expose them to fear or danger. And we must address that if we want to have peace. It is extraordinarily important not to confuse peace with the absence of conflict, because I will tell you that people who live in societies where they're constantly afraid do not feel peaceful at all. And that is why those societies often eventually come to extreme violence. When we work to promote peace, we're not just working to promote an absence of conflict. We're working to promote justice. You asked me, has the Karelian Peace Campaign done any good? My answer to that is that in these 10 years, one of the things we've seen is the exposure of the sources of a great deal of hate and fear. Knowing the sources, we can address them. That will do more, if we can successfully do it, to build peace than many other things we could do. Yes, it's painful to have to see those things. It's painful to know how many people around you are consumed with hatred for others. But once you know it, you can find ways to combat it and improve it. And again, we don't do that by sinking to that level. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but nothing that's worth doing is necessarily going to be easy. And when we dedicate ourselves to the idea of building a more peaceful world, I think we all must recognize immediately that we're not dedicating ourselves to something easy. If it were easy, it would have been here millennia ago. People have been talking about building peace for endless generations. And in some places, they've had considerable effect. But there's always the need for more. And so going back to that complaint, if we can't have perfect peace, what are we doing? Well, we're building better peace. We're building more peace. We're building greater peace in the world as best we can, one step at a time. And that is what this is all about. And as we go forward, we must not expect everything to change overnight. It will not. We must not expect a miraculous conclusion to the situation. That's not what we're going to get. What we're going to get is an incremental, step-by-step improvement if we do our work well. And when I encourage you to pray for peace, I must also encourage you to realize you're going to be doing it for a while. And the effect may not be what you first expect it to be. As I've said, I think one of the biggest effects of the Karelian prayer campaign for peace, although I do think it may have held back some of the fear and hatred, it's also been to expose it. And if you think about it like a physical injury, if you don't know what the injury is, if you don't know where in your body the physical injury is, you can't fix it. You have to identify it. I think we've identified a lot of the causes of fear and pain that we see in the world today. Not all of them, but many of them. Now we must also dedicate ourselves to finding ways to resolve these, ways to move beyond these. And that involves combating them. In some cases, the answer may be education, although I hate to say it, but if the last 30 years shows anything, it's that education by itself is not an answer. Openly opposing it is part of the answer. Standing up for what we believe in is part of the answer. In some cases, physically blocking certain actions may be part of the answer. And certainly, exercising whatever political power we can is part of that answer too. Not standing by and allowing bad things to happen is the biggest part of the answer. Now, we can't always stop them. And I'm not suggesting being careless. On the contrary, I'm suggesting being very pragmatic. But there are many pragmatic ways to oppose and challenge bad actions. And this is what we must seek for ourselves. So often when people talk about peace, they make it into a very rose-colored, namby-pamby subject. The truth is, it's nothing of the sort. It's hard work. It's a great deal of effort. And it is a long slog. But if we want to see a better world, it's a long slog that we must take. Because there is no better world without peace. And again, peace is not just the absence of conflict, it is justice for all people. And we must work on this when we say we work on peace. It's not enough to pray, it's not enough to meditate, though these are important. And as a spiritual person, I think they're very important. But we also have to get out into our physical world and actually stand for these things, actually pursue these things. And, for some of us, these may be very simple acts that we can take in our daily life by just being a better person. For others, there may be much more that you can do. But whatever you can do, if you want to see greater peace, you must do it. Whatever you can do, you must raise your hand to do. And now, with that, I want to take a moment and join other people in this broadcast in offering the peace prayer. I hope that you will join me as I do so. I pray for peace. I pray for love. I pray for stability. I pray for the nation where I live. I pray for the world. I pray that love may overcome fear. And I pray for a true and positive peace for all people. I pray that people may live without fear and hatred in their lives. And that people may be judged by the content of their actions and not simply by who they are. I pray that people may rise above responding from fear and hatred and embrace love and peace. And I pray that the spirit of peace may flow through all peoples and all nations, one step at a time. And behold, I will it, I draw it into being, I accept it, I receive it, and I give thanks for it, and I will so mote it be. And I thank you for joining me for these words. I hope that you have found them inspirational. I hope that you may find them aspirational. That you go forward from this place, not merely passively hoping for peace, but finding ways within your personal power to work for peace in the physical world, to do things that create more peace. And again, by peace, we also include justice. Building a peaceful world is not just building a world without conflict, but building a world of justice for all people. The world is not more peaceful because minorities are bullied into subservience. The world is not more peaceful because people live in oppression. Yes, there may be less open conflict, but that is not peace. The world is only more peaceful when we have built greater justice and greater peace for everyone. So for that, I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and may the blessing be upon you now and always.